Lola, just admit it, you got fired for stealing. That was the first thing my sister said the moment I stepped into Sunday dinner. Why was everyone staring at me like I'd already confessed? Why was there a printed email with my name on it sitting in the middle of the table? And why did it say I'd been terminated? When I'd been at work that very morning, Vanessa leaned back like she'd just told the truth of the year. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father looked disappointed, quietly, firmly convinced. I picked up the paper. The signature at the bottom belonged to my CEO, except he had never sent me this. And then the front door opened. Lola, a calm voice said behind me. I think I should clarify something. My CEO had just walked into my family dinner. If you're watching from outside the US, tell me where you're from. I'm always curious who's here with me. And what time is it where you are right now? If stories like this hit close to home, make sure you're subscribed. This one only gets worse. A week before that dinner, everything about my life made sense. I had a stable role as a senior operations manager at a mid-sized fintech company in downtown Chicago. My job was simple to explain, but hard to do well. I oversaw high-value financial transactions, making sure money moved where it was supposed to when it was supposed to, and that every approval followed strict internal controls. It meant I lived inside systems most people never saw. Transaction logs, approval layers, audit trails. If something went wrong, my name was usually one of the first attached to it. And until that week, that had always been a good thing. Lola, can you review this before end of day? Jason Reed asked, leaning into my office doorway with a tablet in hand. Jason was one of the few people at work I trusted without hesitation. Smart, detail-oriented, and more importantly, honest. Send it over, I said. I'll flag anything weird. He gave me a quick nod. That's why I asked you. That was the kind of reputation I had built slowly, carefully. I wasn't flashy. I didn't network for show. I just did the work and made sure nothing slipped through, which is probably why Vanessa resented me. My sister had always been charismatic. The kind of person who could walk into a room and have people laughing within minutes. Growing up, she was the one who got second chances. I was the one who got expectations. A few months earlier, she had asked me for a favor. I just need an introduction, she'd said over coffee, stirring her drink, like it was part of the performance. You don't even have to recommend me. Just get me in front of someone. I had hesitated. What kind of role are you thinking I asked? Anything corporate. Operations admin, whatever. I learned fast. That part wasn't untrue. Vanessa did learn fast. But she also cut corners just as quickly. I can't just open doors like that, I told her carefully. There are background checks, financial compliance. It's not. So you think I'd fail that? She cut in, her tone tightening. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. I could have softened it. I could have lied. But in my line of work, small lies had a way of turning into big consequences. I'm saying the role requires a clean record, I said. And consistency. It's not a place to figure things out as you go. She sat back, crossing her arms. Right. Because you've got everything figured out. That's not fair, Vanessa. No, she said, a faint smile forming. What's not fair is you acting like you're better than me because you sit behind a desk all day. That conversation ended politely, too politely, because after that, something shifted. She stopped asking about my life, stopped dropping by. When we did talk, it felt measured, like she was choosing her words instead of just speaking. At the time, I told myself it was just pride, that she'd move on. I didn't realize she was paying attention in ways I hadn't noticed. About a week later, she came over to my apartment. My laptop died, she said, holding up the device like proof. I've got a freelance deadline tonight. Can I borrow yours for a couple hours? I hesitated again. My work laptop was off limits. But I had a personal one synced to my email, some non-sensitive files, nothing critical. Just the personal one, I said, handing it over. No company systems, nothing work-related. She smiled quick and bright. I'm not trying to get you fired, Lola. It was a joke. At least that's how I took it. She sat at my kitchen counter for a while, typing occasionally, asking for the Wi-Fi password again, even though she'd been there dozens of times. I didn't think much of it. I was used to her being scattered. When she left, she hugged me like nothing had changed. "Thanks," she said. "I owe you one." I remember thinking that was strange. Vanessa didn't usually say things like that. The next morning at work, everything felt normal until it didn't. It started with an email. It popped into my inbox mid-morning, subject line, internal review notice. That wasn't unusual. We got audit-related notifications all the time. But something about this one felt off. The formatting was slightly different, the tone more formal than usual. Before I could open it fully, it disappeared. Not moved to another folder, not flagged. Gone. I frowned, refreshing my inbox once, then twice. "Jason," I called out, stepping into the hallway. "Did you just get an internal review email?" He looked up from his desk. "No. What kind?" "I'm not sure. It just vanished. That's weird." "Yeah," I said slowly. "It is." I went back to my desk and checked my deleted folder. Nothing. Archive. Nothing. For a moment, I considered letting it go. Systems glitch sometimes. Emails get recalled. It happens. But something about it didn't sit right, especially not after Vanessa's visit. I pulled up the system dashboard I used for transaction oversight. If something was happening behind the scenes, this was where I'd see the first ripple. At first glance, everything looked clean. Green indicators. No flagged transactions. But then I noticed a timestamp. A large transfer processed late the previous night. Authorized under my credentials. My hand froze on the mouse. I hadn't logged in last night. I hadn't approved anything. And yet there it was, my name attached to a transaction I had never seen before. I clicked into the details, my pulse starting to rise. The approval chain looked correct on the surface. But the deeper I went, the more something felt constructed. Like someone had built a version of my actions without me ever taking them. "Jason," I said again, this time quieter. "I need you to look at something." He walked over, leaning in as I pointed at the screen. "Did you authorize this?" he asked. "No," he frowned. "Then we've got a problem." I swallowed, my mind already moving ahead. Because if there was a transaction under my name that I didn't approve, then someone had access they shouldn't have. And they knew exactly how to use it. What I didn't say out loud, what I wasn't ready to admit yet, was the one thought that kept pushing its way forward. Vanessa had been on my laptop, and now something inside my system was pretending to be me. Jason straightened his voice low. "We need to pull the access logs before IT wipes the rolling data." "Before they what?" "Logs auto-refresh," he said. If someone wanted to hide something, they'd count on that. A cold feeling settled in my chest, because that meant whatever had just happened was already being erased. "Pull everything from last night," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Logins, approvals, device IDs don't filter anything." Jason didn't argue. He just nodded and moved. That was one of the things I trusted about him. He didn't waste time asking if something was serious. He could tell. Within minutes, we were both sitting in a small conference room, his laptop connected to the internal system logs, while mine mirrored the transaction dashboard. "Okay," he said, scrolling. "Here's your account activity." I leaned closer. There it was, my username timestamped at 10:42 p.m. A login I never made. "Check the authentication method," I said. He clicked into the details. Password accepted. No two-factor challenge. That made my stomach drop. "All senior accounts require two-factor," I said. Unless the device is recognized," Jason finished. Meaning whoever logged in did it from a device the system trusted. A device I had used before. My mind went straight back to my kitchen counter. To Vanessa sitting there typing, smiling, asking for the Wi-Fi password like it was nothing. "Scroll down," I said. Jason pulled up the IP data. "Residential network," he muttered. North Naperville. That wasn't just close to where Vanessa lived. That was her area. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. I just stared at the screen, trying to force my brain to find another explanation.
A coincidence, a shared network, a mistake.
But the system didn't make mistakes like that. Lola, Jason said quietly, "Do you recognize that location?" I nodded once.
Yeah, he didn't ask more. He didn't need to. Keep going, I said.
He pulled up the full session log. The login had lasted 23 minutes.
Long enough to access my approval queue.
Long enough to initiate a transfer. Long enough to try to clean up afterward. Here, Jason said, pointing. They accessed the high-value transaction panel.
That's restricted. Not to you, he replied, and not to whoever was pretending to be you.
I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay focused.
Look at the transaction ID, I said. Follow the money.
He opened the transfer details.
Amount $48,700. Destination external account. Status completed.
48,000, Jason said under his breath.
That's not random.
No, I said.
It's under the automatic escalation threshold.
Anything over 50,000 triggered an immediate secondary review. Whoever did this knew exactly where the line was and how to stay just beneath it.
Jason glanced at me.
This isn't someone guessing.
I know.
We kept digging. The approval chain had my credentials, but the timing was wrong. The behavior was wrong. Even the sequence of clicks, the way the system tracked navigation, was slightly off.
Subtle, but enough.
It's like... Jason hesitated.
Like what?
Like someone studied how you work, he said, then tried to copy it.
That hit harder than anything else.
Because that meant intent. Planning. Observation. Not just access, but familiarity.
Check device history.
I said, my voice quieter now. Jason pulled up the recognized devices tied to my account. There were only two. My work laptop and my personal laptop. The same one Vanessa had borrowed. Jason leaned back slightly. You said no one else uses your login, right?
Never, I said.
And your personal device? I hesitated for just a second too long.
Lola, I let my sister borrow it, I said. One night. A few days ago.
He didn't react immediately, just processed it. Did she have access to your email? It's synced, I said. But anything sensitive requires additional login.
Unless she captured your credentials while you were already logged in.
My chest tightened. Or installed something he added. Keylogger. Session token reuse. Even something simple like saved autofill.
Vanessa didn't have a tech background.
But she didn't need one. She just needed access and time. Go back to the logs, I said, pushing past the thought. There should be deletion attempts. Jason scrolled further. Here, he said. Several entries marked as log modification request. Unauthorized, he added. System rejected partial deletion, meaning someone had tried to erase their tracks and failed. But not completely. It would have caught this, Jason said. Eventually.
Eventually isn't good enough, I replied. By then, I'm already the one under investigation.
He nodded slowly.
Yeah, he said.
Because right now, it looks like you logged in from home and moved $48,000. I stared at the number again.
48,000.
Not 50, not a round figure. Calculated, intentional.
Follow the destination account, I said.
Jason clicked through. The account name was partially masked, as expected. External transfers always had limited visibility unless escalated. But there was still metadata. Bank routing, account opening date, and a name fragment. R. Jason read. He stopped.
Looked at me. Didn't finish the name. He didn't have to.
My hands felt cold. Could be a coincidence, he said, but his tone didn't match the words. No, I said quietly. It's not. Silence settled between us. Not the kind that meant uncertainty. The kind that meant something had just become real. Jason closed the laptop halfway. You need to report this.
I will, I said. But not like this.
What do you mean? If I go straight to compliance right now, I said I'm the obvious suspect. My credentials, my device, my access.
So what's the alternative?
I looked back at the screen, at the transaction, at the fragments of a name that felt too familiar.
I need more than suspicion, I said. I need something that proves I didn't do this. Jason studied me for a moment.
And something that proves who did.
Exactly.
He exhaled. Then we move fast, before anything else disappears. I nodded. But even as we gathered what we could, one thought kept pressing at the edge of everything. Vanessa hadn't just accessed my system, she had tried to erase it, which meant she knew exactly how serious this was. And if she was willing to go that far, then whatever she was planning next wasn't going to stop at a single transaction. Jason's screen refreshed suddenly. A new entry appeared at the top of the log. He frowned. That's not right. What? Your account just tried to access the system again. I felt my pulse spike. I'm sitting right here, I said. I know, he replied. He turned the screen toward me. New login attempt. Same IP range. North Naperville. Time right now. Block it, I said immediately. Jason was already typing. I'm flagging the session. If it's still trying to authenticate, we can force a lockout. The system refreshed again. Attempt failed. Another attempt. Failed. Whoever it is, they're still trying, Jason muttered. I stared at the timestamp. Real time. Active. Not something from days ago. Not a leftover trace. Someone was sitting somewhere right now trying to get back into my account. Pull the device fingerprint, I said. Jason opened another panel. Same device signature as before. Same browser. Same configuration. My chest tightened. That wasn't just confirmation. That was a pattern. They're using the exact same setup he said. No effort to mask it. Or they think they don't need to, I replied. Jason paused, then looked at me. You think they're that confident? I didn't answer right away, because confidence like that didn't come from nowhere. It came from believing the story would hold, that no one would question it, that I would already be blamed. Lock my account, I said, now. He hesitated. That'll trigger an alert. Good. He hit enter. Within seconds, my access was revoked. Every active session terminated. For the first time since this started, I felt a fraction of control return. But it didn't last. Lola, Jason said slowly, if your account's locked, and someone still tries to use it, then they're not checking the system, I finished. They're following a plan. And plans didn't stop just because one step failed. I leaned back, forcing myself to think clearly. Export everything I said, logs, timestamps, device data. I want copies outside the system. You're thinking legal, he said. I'm thinking survival, because at this point, it wasn't just about proving I was innocent. It was about proving someone else wasn't, and that someone had already taken the first shot. Jason started pulling the data, saving encrypted copies to a secure external drive. Okay, he said after a few minutes. We've got a snapshot, but it's going to see the lockout. They'll start asking questions. Let them, I said. I'd rather answer questions than get blindsided. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Vanessa, hey, you okay? I stared at the message. Timing was everything. She hadn't texted me in days. Not after our last conversation. Not after going quiet. But now, right after a failed login attempt tied to her area, she was checking on me. Jason noticed my expression. What? I turned the phone toward him. He read it, then looked back at me. That's convenient. Too convenient, I said. Another message came in. Vanessa. Mom's worried about you. You've been distant. I almost laughed. Distant. She was trying to log into my account while texting me about being distant. Don't respond, Jason said. I'm not, I replied. Not yet. Because anything I said now would tell her something. That I knew. That I suspected. That I was paying attention. And if she was planning something bigger, I needed her to believe I wasn't. I put my phone face down. Let's finish this, I said. Jason nodded, but before he could continue, another alert popped up on his screen. Wait, he said. There's more. What now? He pulled up a deeper layer of the logs, the kind most people didn't bother checking unless they knew exactly what to look for. These are session artifacts, he said. Residual traces from past logins. Anything useful? Maybe he said scrolling. If someone tried to clean up, they wouldn't know about all of these. He stopped. Zoomed in. There, he said. A device label. Not just a fingerprint. A name. My stomach dropped before he even read it out loud. Device alias, Vanessa Rosaire. The room went quiet. There it was. Not a guess. Not a pattern. not an assumption.
A name, attached directly to the access point used to impersonate me.
Jason leaned back slowly. That's not something you can fake easily. That's the system pulling the device name from its original registration. I nodded, but I couldn't speak, because in that moment it stopped being abstract. It stopped being a theory. Vanessa hadn't just accessed my system. She had used her own device, carelessly or confidently.
Save that, I said finally.
Every bit of it.
It's already backed up,
Jason replied. I picked up my phones again, staring at her messages.
Hey, you okay?
Mom's worried about you.
For a second, I saw her the way I used to. My little sister. The one who borrowed my clothes without asking. The one who laughed too loud at things that weren't that funny. The one who always said I worried too much.
And then I saw the log,
the transaction, the deletion attempts, the device name.
And something inside of me shifted.
Not anger.
Not yet.
Just clarity.
I'm going to call her, I said.
Jason frowned. Are you sure that's a good idea?
I'm not accusing her, I said. I just want to hear her talk. He considered that, then nodded.
Keep it neutral. I will.
I stepped out into the hallway and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring.
Hey,
she said, her voice light, almost cheerful. I was just texting you. I replied. I've just been busy.
At work?
Yeah. A small pause.
Everything okay there?
She asked. The question was casual.
Too casual.
Why wouldn't it be? I asked. I don't know, she said quickly. You just sounded stressed the other day. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes for a second. She was good.
Careful. Controlled.
What are you doing right now? I asked.
Just at home, she said.
Why? No reason, I replied. Just checking in. Another pause.
Longer this time.
Lola, she said slowly, is something going on? I opened my eyes, looked down the hallway at the conference room where Jason was still pulling data. Yeah, I said quietly. Something is. Silence. Then a soft laugh on the other end.
Well, she said, you know you can tell me anything, right?
I almost said it. Almost asked her directly. Almost gave her the chance to lie again.
But I didn't. Of course, I said instead. I know.
We hung up a minute later. I stood there for a moment staring at my phone. She hadn't slipped.
Not once.
No hesitation about where she was. No sign she'd just tried to access my account.
Nothing.
Which meant one thing. She was either incredibly careful, or she thought she was untouchable. I walked back into the conference room. Jason looked up.
Well, she's calm, I said.
Too calm. He nodded. That tracks. I sat down, exhaling slowly. Then we don't confront her yet, he added. No, I said. We don't. Because if Vanessa was building a story, I needed to see how far she was willing to take it. And more importantly, who she was planning to tell it to. My phone buzzed again.
A new message.
Vanessa. Hey, Mom wants you to come to dinner Sunday. She said it's important. I stared at the screen. Jason leaned over slightly. What is it? I turned the phone toward him. He read it, then looked back at me.
Think that's a coincidence, he asked.
I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I think that's the stage. I didn't go to compliance first. That was the part people always questioned later. Why didn't I just report everything immediately and let the system handle it? Because I knew how the system worked. And right now, the system said I had logged in from home, approved a $48,700 transfer, and attempted to erase the evidence. The logs we'd recovered were strong, but they weren't the official record yet. If I walked in unprepared, I wouldn't just be explaining myself. I'd be defending myself.
There's a difference. Ethan's in,
Jason said, glancing at his calendar.
You still want to talk to him directly?
Yes, I said, but I'm not going in empty-handed. We spent the next hour organizing what we had clean timelines, side-by-side comparisons, highlighting inconsistencies that couldn't be explained by normal user behavior. It wasn't just data. It was a story the system couldn't tell on its own. A story I needed someone with authority to hear. Ethan Caldwell's office was on the top floor, glass walls, minimalist design, the kind of space that made everything feel visible and deliberate. He looked up as I walked in. Lola, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Jason said you needed to see me urgently.
I do, I said. And I need you to hear all of it before you make any decisions. That got his attention. Go ahead.
I didn't rush. I laid it out step by step. The missing email, the unauthorized login, the transaction just under the escalation threshold, the attempted log deletion, the device fingerprint, the alias tied to the device.
I didn't say Vanessa's name at first.
I just let the pattern build. Ethan didn't interrupt. He watched the screen, occasionally asking precise questions, timestamps, system behavior, whether two-factor had been bypassed or legitimately satisfied. When I finished, he leaned back slightly, folding his hands.
Are you telling me, he said carefully, that someone accessed your account using a recognized device, executed a transaction, and attempted to cover their tracks, and that this wasn't you?
Yes.
And you believe you know who it was?
I held his gaze.
I have evidence pointing in one direction, I said, but I want the company to confirm it independently.
He nodded once.
That's the right answer.
Silence stretched for a moment. Then he turned his monitor toward himself, typing something quickly.
Here's what I can confirm immediately, he said. There has been no authorized termination request tied to your profile, no disciplinary review, no internal flag.
Relief didn't hit me the way I expected, because I already knew that, but hearing it out loud mattered. Second, he continued, the signature on that email, if it exists, is not mine. I exhaled slowly, which means he said someone is not only committing financial fraud, but also impersonating executive authority. His tone hadn't changed, but something underneath it had. This wasn't just my problem anymore.
This is bigger than a single transaction, he added.
I know. He studied me for a moment. Why didn't you go to compliance first?
Because right now, I said, the clean version of the system makes me look guilty.
A faint, almost imperceptible smile crossed his face.
You understand risk, he said. I have to.
He nodded, then tapped a few keys.
I'm going to initiate a controlled internal review, he said. Not a broad alert. Not yet.
What does that mean? It means we investigate quietly, he replied. We preserve evidence before it can be altered, and we don't give whoever did this time to react. That was exactly what I needed. What about the transaction, I asked.
It's already flagged, he said.
But here's the part you need to understand. He turned the screen back toward me.
The funds weren't just transferred, he said. They were withdrawn this morning.
My chest tightened.
Withdrawn how?
Cash and partial digital movement, he said. Layered to avoid immediate freeze. Whoever did this hadn't just taken the money. They had moved fast.
Can you trace it? I asked.
He nodded.
Yes, because we were already watching it.
I blinked.
What?
He leaned back slightly.
When a transaction sits just under the escalation threshold, he said it doesn't trigger an automatic stop, but it does trigger a silent flag.
A silent flag, meaning the system had noticed, meaning someone had already been paying attention.
We let it go through, he continued,
because sometimes the only way to understand intent is to see what happens next.
A chill ran through me.
You let it go, I asked.
We monitored it, he corrected, and we marked it.
Marked how?
He held my gaze for a second. Every dollar is traceable.
That was the twist I hadn't seen coming.
The money wasn't just gone. It was being followed, which means, I said slowly, whoever took it is already on record, he finished.
The room felt different now.
He wasn't just responding to a problem.
He was already ahead of it.
Do you have a name, he asked.
I hesitated. This was the moment.
The point where suspicion became accusation. I have a device alias, I said. And a connection.
Say it.
My sister, I said quietly.
Vanessa rose.
He didn't react the way I expected. No surprise. No disbelief. Just a slow nod.
Family makes this harder, he said.
It does, but it doesn't change the facts.
No, I agreed. It doesn't. He closed the file on his screen. Here's what's going to happen, he said. We continue gathering evidence. We let her believe the plan is working. I felt my stomach tighten. You think she's not done? I think he said carefully that people who take this kind of risk rarely stop at one move. That made sense.
Too much sense. What about me?
I asked. What do I do in the meantime? You stay exactly where you are, he said. You don't confront her. You don't warn her. You don't change your behavior. And if she pushes further, he met my eyes. Then we let her. That should have scared me. But instead, it gave me something I hadn't had since this started.
Direction.
I stood up slowly.
Thank you, I said. This isn't over, he replied. Not for you. Not for her.
I nodded, turning to leave. Lola, he called after me. I paused. If she's planning something public, he said she'll choose a moment where she controls the narrative.
I thought about that. About Vanessa.
About how she operated. About how much she cared about perception.
She already has, I said quietly. He didn't ask what I meant. Because I didn't explain. Not yet.
By the time I got back to my desk, my phone was buzzing.
A new message.
Vanessa, don't forget Sunday dinner. Everyone's going to be there.
I stared at the words. Everyone's going to be there. Not just family.
An audience.
A stage.
And suddenly the email on the table, the one I hadn't seen yet but somehow already knew existed, made perfect sense.
She wasn't just trying to take my job.
She was trying to take my reputation in front of the people whose opinions had always mattered most. Jason leaned over my desk.
Everything okay?
I turned the phone toward him. He read the message, then looked back at me.
That's not dinner, he said.
No, I replied.
It's a setup.
I nodded slowly. And for the first time since this started, I understood something clearly.
Vanessa wasn't improvising.
She was executing, which meant Sunday night
wasn't going to be the end of this.
It was going to be the moment she thought she had already won. Sunday didn't start like a confrontation. It started like a performance. By noon, my phone had already buzzed 3 times, once from my mother, once from my Aunt Carol, and once from Vanessa. Vanessa, don't be late tonight. Mom's already stressed. I read it twice, then set my phone down without replying.
Still going?
Jason asked from across my desk.
Yeah, I said. I need to see how far she's willing to go.
He nodded, but his expression didn't relax.
Just remember you're not walking in blind anymore.
I know. That was the difference. A few days ago, I would have shown up confused, defensive, trying to piece things together in real time. Now I knew exactly what Vanessa had done. I just didn't know how she planned to present it. And that mattered. Because in families like mine, facts didn't always win. Stories did. I got to my parents' house just before 7. The lights were already on. Cars lined the curb, my uncle's truck, my aunt's SUV, even my cousin Rachel's car. Everyone's going to be there. Vanessa hadn't been exaggerating. I paused at the front door for a second, taking a breath.
Then I stepped inside.
The smell of roasted chicken and something sweet hit me first. Normal, familiar, almost comforting. But the silence that followed wasn't. Conversation stopped. Chairs shifted. Every eye turned toward me at once. Lola, my mother said, forcing a smile that didn't quite land. You made it. Of course, I replied, slipping off my coat. You said it was important. Across the room, Vanessa leaned against the kitchen counter, arms loosely crossed. She looked relaxed. Too relaxed. Hey, she said like nothing was wrong. Glad you came. I met her eyes for a second. She didn't look away.
No guilt. No hesitation. Just control. Wouldn't miss it, I said.
That earned a small smile. Dinner started almost immediately. Plates were passed. Drinks were poured. Conversations picked up, but not the usual kind. Everything felt staged, like people were waiting for a cue. I sat down across from my father. He avoided my eyes at first, focusing on cutting his food with unnecessary precision. So my Aunt Carol said after a few minutes, her tone overly casual. How's work, Lola? There it was.
The opening.
I set my fork down slowly.
It's been busy, I said.
Why do you ask? She glanced at Vanessa.
Just for a second. But it was enough. Well, she said we heard there were some changes.
I felt every pair of eyes shift toward me again. Vanessa straightened slightly, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I didn't want to say anything. She began, her voice soft, almost reluctant. But I think it's better if we're all honest.
I didn't interrupt.
That was part of the plan.
Let her talk.
She got fired, Vanessa said, looking around the table. From her company. A murmur spread through the room. My mother's hand tightened around her glass. My father finally looked up at me. Disappointment already settled in his expression.
For what my uncle asked.
Vanessa hesitated just long enough to make it seem painful. For moving money she wasn't supposed to, she said quietly. They called it misappropriation. The word landed heavier than anything else.
Not stealing, not a mistake. Misappropriation. Corporate language. Serious, intentional.
I stayed still,
Silent.
because this wasn't the moment to defend myself. This was the moment to listen. I didn't want to believe it either, Vanessa continued, but I saw the email.
That was new.
I saw it on her laptop, she added. She left it open. A lie layered over access, carefully chosen. My mother turned to me.
Lola, is that true? There it was. The question that mattered. Not what happened. Not is there more to the story. Just is it true?
I picked up my water glass, taking a small sip to give myself a second. No, I said simply. The room shifted again.
Not relieved.
Confused. That's it, my father asked.
No explanation. There's nothing to explain, I replied. Because it didn't happen.
Vanessa let out a small breath like she'd expected that.
She's going to deny it, she said gently. Of course she is.
I'm not denying anything, I said, turning to her. I'm correcting you. Her expression didn't change. If it's not true, my aunt said, then why would there be an email?
Exactly.
That was the question Vanessa needed them to ask. I leaned back slightly in my chair.
Why don't you show it?
I said. Vanessa blinked.
Just once.
A flicker. Gone almost immediately. I printed it, she said, reaching for something beside her plate. She placed the paper in the center of the table. The same one from the hook.
I didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, I watched her.
The way her fingers lingered on the edge of the page for just a second too long. The way she scanned the room not to see reactions, but to confirm control. She thought she had this. Every detail. Every angle.
Go ahead,
she said, looking at me.
Explain it.
I met her gaze. Calm, steady, because I finally understood something.
This wasn't about convincing them.
It was about letting her finish. Letting her commit to the story fully. Because once she did, there would be no way back.
I will, I said.
And right then, there was a knock at the front door. Not loud, but enough to cut through the tension. Everyone turned. My mother frowned.
Were we expecting someone?
Vanessa didn't answer. For the first time that night, she looked unsure. My father stood up, walking toward the door.
Probably just a neighbor, he muttered.
He opened it and froze. I didn't need to see who it was.
Because I already knew.
A calm voice carried into the room.
Good evening, he said. I'm looking for Lola Rose.
Every muscle in Vanessa's body went still. My father stepped aside slowly. And Ethan Caldwell walked in. For a second, no one moved.
Not my mother. Not my father. Not even Vanessa.
Ethan Caldwell didn't rush. He stepped inside like he belonged there. Calm, composed, taking in the room without reacting to the tension he'd just interrupted. I hope I'm not intruding, he said politely, though his presence made it clear he wasn't asking.
My father recovered first. No, we weren't expecting. Of course not,
Ethan replied. Neither was I until a few things came to my attention. His eyes moved through the room, then settled on me.
Lola, I stood slowly. Ethan.
Vanessa's voice cut in just a little too quickly. You're her boss, right? He turned toward her, giving a small nod.
I am.
Something in her posture shifted subtle, but there.
She wasn't relaxed anymore. But she wasn't panicking either. Not yet.
That's perfect, she said, forcing a small smile. Actually, we were just talking about Lola's situation at work. I heard, he said evenly. The room went quiet again, because now the story had a witness. And not just any witness. Authority.
Well, my aunt said, trying to smooth things over, maybe you can clarify things for us.
Vanessa leaned forward slightly. Yes, she said, her tone soft again, because there seems to be some confusion. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. This was the moment we had been waiting for. Ethan glanced at the paper in the center of the table, the printed email. Is that the document in question, he asked? Yes, Vanessa said. That's the termination notice. He picked it up, scanning it briefly.
No reaction, just observation.
Then he placed it back down.
This is not an official document from our company, he said.
The words landed clean, precise.
No hesitation. No room for interpretation.
What do you mean, my father asked?
I mean, Ethan continued, this email was not issued by our HR department, nor was it authorized by me or anyone in executive leadership.
A ripple moved through the room.
Confusion, doubt.
Vanessa's smile didn't disappear, but it tightened.
That doesn't make sense, she said lightly. It has your name on it. So it does,
he replied.
And that is part of the problem.
He turned slightly, addressing the table. Impersonating executive authority, especially in connection with financial misconduct, is a serious matter. Now the tone had changed.
Not louder, just heavier.
Vanessa shifted in her seat. I'm sure there's some misunderstanding, she said. Lola probably just hasn't been told everything yet. Ethan looked at her directly.
Lola has been informed of exactly what she needs to know, he said. And more importantly, what has not happened.
Silence again. My mother looked between us.
So, she wasn't fired.
No, Ethan said. She was not.
Relief should have come.
But it didn't, because the room didn't relax.
It recalculated.
Eyes moved back to Vanessa. She let out a small breath, shaking her head like she couldn't believe it. That's strange, she said. Because I saw this on her laptop myself.
There it was again. The claim. Repeated. Strengthened.
Ethan didn't argue.
He didn't need to.
May I ask, he said calmly, how you came across that laptop?
Vanessa blinked.
Just once.
She let me borrow it, she said. For work.
And while you were using it, he continued, you accessed her email.
I didn't snoop, she said quickly.
It was just open.
Of course, he replied.
His tone didn't accuse.
But it didn't believe either.
I watched her carefully. She was adjusting now, shifting the narrative, trying to stay ahead of something she didn't fully see yet. Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a thin folder. He placed it on the table next to the printed email.
Since we're clarifying things, he said, I think it's important we look at all the relevant information.
Vanessa's fingers curled slightly against the edge of the table. What information, she asked.
The kind that doesn't disappear, he said.
He opened the folder. Inside were printed pages, clean organized, unmistakably official.
System access logs, he said. Transaction records. Device identification data.
My father frowned.
I don't understand. What does that have to do with?
It has everything to do with it, Ethan said, still calm.
Because earlier this week, a transaction was executed under Lola's credentials.
A murmur spread again. Vanessa didn't speak.
Not this time. $48,700, he continued.
Transferred out of a monitored account. My mother's face paled.
Oh my God.
But he added, the activity associated with that transaction does not match Lola's behavior pattern, nor her verified access history. Now the room was fully quiet.
No side conversations, no shifting, just listening.
Ethan slid one page forward.
This, he said, is the login record associated with that transaction.
I didn't look at it. I didn't need to. I knew what it showed.
Location North Naperville, he said.
Residential network.
My father looked confused.
That's here. Correct, Ethan said. Vanessa's breathing changed. Barely noticeable.
But I saw it.
And this, he continued, sliding another page forward, is the device used. He paused for just a second.
Not for effect. For precision. Device alias Vanessa Rose Air.
The name sat in the air like it had weight. Heavy.
Unavoidable.
My mother turned slowly toward Vanessa.
What?
Does that mean, she asked, her voice unsteady? Vanessa opened her mouth,
closed it,
then forced a small laugh. That doesn't prove anything, she said. Anyone could name a device that. Ethan nodded slightly. In theory, yes. He tapped the page lightly. In practice, this identifier was registered through a prior authenticated session linked to a personal device, used repeatedly over time. Not random, not planted, established.
Real.
And that's not all he added. That was the shift. The one Vanessa hadn't accounted for. Her head turned sharply. What do you mean? Ethan met her gaze.
I mean, he said we have additional records tied to the movement of those funds. My pulse slowed, not from relief, from certainty. This was it, the point where everything she built started to come apart. Vanessa leaned forward slightly. Then show them, she said, still pushing, still trying to stay in control. Ethan nodded once. I intend to. He reached into the folder again and pulled out another document. One more question first, he said, his voice steady. Vanessa didn't answer. She just stared at him. Do you want to explain the account those funds were sent to? He asked. Before I do, the room held its breath. Vanessa didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. And for the first time that night, she looked like she wasn't sure what came next. Vanessa didn't answer right away. She looked at the papers, then at Ethan, then briefly at me. For the first time that night, she didn't look like she was controlling the room. She looked like she was calculating. I don't know what you're trying to imply, she said, finally, her voice steadier than her expression. But you can't just walk in here and accuse people without context. Ethan didn't react. I agree, he said. Context matters. He slid the next document forward. This is the destination account tied to the transaction. My father leaned in slightly, squinting at the page. My mother didn't move. She just watched Vanessa. The account holder's name is partially masked in our system, Ethan continued. Standard protocol. Vanessa let out a small breath, almost relieved. But he added, we don't rely on a single system. That relief disappeared just as quickly. He placed another page beside it. This is the corresponding bank confirmation we obtained through our fraud monitoring process. My uncle frowned. You can do that. When there's suspected internal fraud involving corporate funds, Ethan said yes. He tapped the line near the center of the page. The account is registered under Vanessa Rose. No one spoke. Not immediately. The words didn't need repetition. They were clear enough the first time. My mother's hand slowly lowered from her glass. Vanessa, she said, barely above a whisper. Vanessa shook her head quickly. No. That's not right. Her voice had changed. Less controlled. More urgent. There are a lot of Vanessa Roses, she added, forcing a small laugh. You don't even have a full name there. Ethan nodded slightly. You're right. On its own, that wouldn't be sufficient. He turned another page. This is the account opening record. I watched her eyes move, line by line, until they stopped. There it was. Full name, address, date of birth, everything. Hers. She didn't speak. Didn't move. The silence stretched too long. Vanessa, my father said, his voice firmer now. You need to explain this. She swallowed. It's not what it looks like, she said quickly. This isn't. What is it then? He pressed. Her eyes flicked to me, just for a second, and something passed through them. Not guilt. Not yet. Something closer to resentment. You don't understand, she said, her voice tightening. I didn't just wake up and decide to do this. There it was. The shift. From denial to justification. My aunt leaned forward. Then explain it. Vanessa let out a breath, her shoulders rising and falling. I was just trying to fix things, she said. For myself. By taking money, my father asked. I wasn't going to keep it, she snapped. I just needed time. Time for what my mother asked. Vanessa laughed, but there was no humor in it. To not be the one who's always behind, she said. To not be the one everyone compares to her. She gestured toward me. And what does that have to do with forging documents, my uncle asked. Vanessa hesitated, then looked straight at me. Because no one listens unless there's a reason, she said. No one sees me unless something goes wrong. That's not true, my mother said quickly. Yes, it is, Vanessa shot back. When has anyone ever taken me seriously without comparing me to Lola? The room shifted again, this time not with confusion, with discomfort. Because part of what she said wasn't entirely wrong, but it didn't justify what she had done. Ethan didn't interrupt. He let her speak. Because the more she talked, the more she revealed. I just needed a way to get ahead. She continued, her voice rising. And she had everything set up perfectly. Access, trust, reputation. So you used it, I said quietly. She stopped. Looked at me. Yes, she said after a second. I did. There it was. Not a full confession, But enough.
You used my access, I said. My account. My name. You weren't using it for anything that mattered. She replied sharper now. You just sit there making sure numbers move correctly. I needed something real. My chest tightened, but not from what she said. From how easily she said it. Ethan stepped in then. Intent doesn't change outcome, he said. You accessed a protected system, executed an unauthorized transfer, and attempted to conceal it. Vanessa turned toward him. I said I wasn't going to keep it. You already withdrew it, he replied. That landed harder than anything else. Her expression shifted again. Because that part, she couldn't soften. You went to an ATM this morning. He continued, his voice still calm. 2 locations. Partial withdrawals to avoid triggering limits.
My mother covered her mouth.
Vanessa, she whispered. There's more, Ethan said. Vanessa's head snapped toward him. What more? He held her gaze.
The funds you withdrew were marked.
She frowned. Marked. Traceable, he clarified. Every movement logged. Every withdrawal recorded. Every remaining balance identifiable. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had moved in just enough to make it hard to breathe. You can't do that, she said, her voice lower now. We already did, he replied. Silence. Heavy, final. And then something in her broke. Not dramatically, not all at once, just enough. I didn't think it would go this far, she said almost to herself.
That's usually how it starts,
Ethan said. She looked down at the table.
At the papers.
At the email she had placed there so confidently. It was just supposed to be… She stopped. A way to what my father asked. To prove something, she said quietly. To who? She didn't answer, because the answer was obvious. Everyone.
Especially me.
I felt it then. Not anger, not satisfaction. Something quieter. The realization that this wasn't just about money. Or even reputation. It was about a story she had been telling herself for years. One where I was always ahead, and she was always catching up. And instead of changing her path, she tried to rewrite mine. Ethan closed the folder. This matter will be handled formally, he said. But for now, I think everyone here understands what happened. No one argued. No one defended her. Not this time. Vanessa didn't look up, didn't speak again. And for the first time since I walked into that house, the room wasn't on her side anymore. But Ethan wasn't finished. He turned slightly, his attention still on her.
There's one more detail, he said.
Vanessa's head lifted slowly. What now? She asked, her voice barely steady. He met her eyes.
The portion of the funds that hasn't been withdrawn yet.
He paused.
Has already been frozen.
Her face went completely still, because whatever she had planned next, whatever she thought she could still fix,
was gone.
And for the first time that night, she looked like she understood that. No one reached for their food anymore. Plates sat half-finished, glasses untouched. The air had changed in a way that didn't allow anything normal to continue. Vanessa stared at the table. Her fingers curled tightly against the edge like she was holding on to something that was already slipping away. My father was the first to speak.
You took it,
he said, slower this time. Not a question, not disbelief, just a statement settling into place. Vanessa didn't answer. Vanessa, my mother whispered, look at me. She didn't. That hurt my mother more than anything else. After everything we've done for you, my father continued, his voice tightening. You used your sister's name to steal money. I didn't steal it, Vanessa said sharply, lifting her head. I was going to put it back, from where he asked. You already took it out. She didn't respond, because there wasn't an answer that worked anymore. Ethan stood slightly to the side, not dominating the room, but not stepping away either. He had said what needed to be said. Now the consequences were catching up in real time.
This isn't just a family issue, he added, his tone steady. This is financial fraud, identity misuse, system breach.
The words weren't loud, but they were final. My aunt shifted uncomfortably. Does that mean legal action? Ethan didn't hesitate. That decision is already in motion. Vanessa turned toward him, her eyes widening. What does that mean? It means, he said, the company has a legal obligation to report and pursue this. You can't be serious, she said, her voice rising. It's not like I robbed a bank. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he let the silence answer for him.
Because in a way, she had.
Just not in a place she expected to be held accountable. She looked around the table, searching for support.
For anyone to step in.
My mother looked torn hurt. Confused, still trying to reconcile the version of her daughter she knew with the one sitting in front of her now.
My father didn't look at her at all.
You're not going to let them do this, Vanessa said, suddenly turning to me. There it was.
Not an apology. Not regret. Expectation.
You're going to fix this, she added, her voice more urgent now. You can tell them it's a misunderstanding, that you gave me permission.
That. No, I said.
I didn't raise my voice. I didn't hesitate.
Just one word.
And it landed harder than anything else that night. Vanessa froze. What she said, like she hadn't heard me correctly. I'm not going to fix this, I said. Because I didn't break it. Her expression shifted, confusion turning into something sharper. Lola, don't do that, she said. Don't act like you're above this. I'm not above it, I replied. I'm just not responsible for it. You could stop this, she insisted. You know you could. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. I could delay it, maybe complicate it. But I wouldn't stop it. She stared at me, disbelief settling in. You'd really let this happen? She asked. The question hung there, not just for me, for everyone. I took a breath before answering. I'm not letting anything happen, I said. You already did. Silence, not tense this time, just quiet. Because there was nothing left to argue. Vanessa leaned back slowly in her chair, her energy draining in a way I hadn't seen before. Not dramatic.
Not emotional. Just gone.
I didn't think you'd go this far, she said quietly. I almost smiled, because that was the part she still didn't understand.
This isn't far, I said. This is just the truth catching up.
My mother finally spoke again, her voice fragile. Vanessa, why didn't you just ask for help? Vanessa laughed softly, but it broke halfway through. Because asking never worked, she said.
Not really.
That's not true, my mother said. It is, Vanessa replied. It always came with conditions. Comparisons. Reminders of what Lola did better. I felt that, not as guilt,
but as recognition.
There had always been a gap between us. I just never thought she'd try to close it like this.
That still doesn't justify this,
my father said firmly. I know, she said. And for the first time, it sounded like she actually did. Ethan checked his watch briefly, then looked at me. I'll follow up with you tomorrow, he said. We'll handle the formal side from there. I nodded. Thank you. He gave a small, respectful nod to my parents, then turned and walked toward the door. No drama, no final statement. Just done. The front door closed behind him, and the house felt quieter than it had all night. Vanessa didn't move, neither did anyone else, until my father stood up. I think you should go, he said. Vanessa looked up slowly. What?
You heard me.
Dad.
Not tonight,
he said. I can't. He stopped shaking his head. I can't process this with you sitting here like nothing happened. My mother looked like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. That might have hurt Vanessa more than anything else. She stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. Fine, she said. But there was no fight left in it. She grabbed her bag, hesitating for just a second, like she might say something else.
Something meaningful.
Something that could change how this ended. But she didn't. She just walked past me, close enough that I could feel the shift in the air. She paused at the door, not turning around, not apologizing, just standing there for a moment. Then she left. The door closed, and that was it. No resolution, no repair, just absence. I sat there for a few seconds longer, letting it settle. Then I stood up. I'm going to head out, I said. My mother looked at me, her eyes tired. Lola, it's okay, I said gently. We'll talk later. She nodded, even though nothing about this felt okay. As I walked to the door, I realized something I hadn't expected. I wasn't angry, not the way I thought I'd be. I wasn't even relieved, just clear. Clear about what had happened. Clear about what I needed to do next. And clear about something else, too. Vanessa hadn't just lost control tonight. She had lost the one thing she thought she could take from me.
My place in this family.
And as I stepped outside into the cool night air, I understood something even more important. She had never really had it to begin with. The house felt smaller the next time I saw it. Not physically. Nothing had changed about the walls or the furniture or the way the light came through the kitchen window in the late afternoon. But something had shifted. Space, maybe. Distance. Or the absence of someone who used to fill it. It had been 3 weeks since that dinner. 3 weeks since everything came out. And in that time, my life had split cleanly into 2 parts, before and after. At work, things moved faster than I expected. Ethan followed through exactly the way he said he would. Compliance opened a formal investigation, but this time, I wasn't the one under scrutiny. Every log Jason and I had saved was verified independently. The device trace, the access pattern, the transaction timing, even the failed deletion attempts. All of it lined up, clean, precise, unavoidable. Within days, I was officially cleared of any wrongdoing. The internal report used language that felt strangely clinical for something that had nearly destroyed my life: unauthorized access through credential compromise. External actor with established device trust, primary account holder not responsible. It was all true. But it didn't capture what it felt like to sit at that table and watch people believe the worst about you. Ethan called me into his office the following Monday. "This shouldn't have reached the point it did," he said. "But the way you handled it, methodical, controlled, that matters." "I didn't have much of a choice," I replied. "You always do," he said. "Most people just don't take it." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a formal offer. Promotion, expanded oversight, a team of my own. I stared at it for a second longer than I expected, not because I didn't want it, but because of what it represented. Not revenge, not correction, just recognition. "I'll take it," I said. He nodded once, like he already knew I would. "Good," he said. "You earned it." At home, things were quieter, not peaceful, just unresolved. My mother called me twice that week. The first time she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough that I could hear how shaken she was. "I don't know how we missed this," she said. "I don't know how it got this far. I didn't have an answer for that." Because the truth was, it hadn't happened all at once. It had built slowly, in small comparisons, in quiet expectations, in the way we talked about success, like it belonged more to one of us than the other. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she said before hanging up. "I just wanted you to know I see it now." The second time, she didn't cry. She just asked how I was. And for the first time in a while, I answered honestly. "I'm okay," I said. And I was. My father never called, but he did send a message. Short, direct. "I should have listened to you first." That was as close to an apology as he knew how to get. I didn't push for more, because I wasn't trying to rebuild things the way they were. I was deciding what they could be and what they couldn't. Vanessa didn't reach out. Not at first. Ethan had been clear there would be legal consequences. Not immediate, not dramatic, but structured. Documented. Real. I didn't follow every detail. I didn't need to. What mattered was that it was no longer my responsibility. That boundary held. Even when it felt uncomfortable. Even when part of me wondered if I should say something, I didn't. Because this wasn't about punishing her. It was about not protecting her from the consequences of what she chose to do. 3 weeks after the dinner, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. No name, just a text. I didn't think it would end like this. I stared at it for a while before responding. Not immediately, not emotionally, just carefully. Neither did I. The reply came faster this time. You really didn't have to let it go that far. I read that twice, then a third time. And something in me settled, because even now she still saw it as something I allowed, not something she caused. I typed slowly. I didn't take anything from you. I just didn't take it for you anymore. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, came back, then nothing. No reply, no argument, just silence. And somehow, that felt more final than anything she could have said. A few days later, I stood in my new office. Same building, same company, different view. There was more space now, a wider desk, a team that reported to me instead of working beside me. It wasn't dramatic, but it was mine. Jason knocked lightly on the door frame. "Settling and getting there," I said. He smiled. "You know, most people would have handled that situation very differently, I know. Some would have confronted her immediately. Some would have panicked. Some would have tried to cover it up quietly." I nodded. "None of those would have worked." "No," he said, "they wouldn't have." He paused for a second. "Do you ever wish it hadn't gone that way I thought about it? About Vanessa? About the dinner? About everything that came before it?" Sometimes I said, but not enough to ignore what it showed me. "And what's that?" I leaned back slightly, looking out the window. "That I can care about someone," I said, "and still not let them have access to my life." Jason nodded once. "That's a hard line to draw." "It is," I said, "but it's a necessary one." He left a minute later, closing the door behind him. I sat there for a while, letting the quiet settle. No accusations, no explanations, no one trying to rewrite what had already happened, just space and clarity. My phone buzzed once more on the desk. Another unknown number. I didn't pick it up right away, because for the first time in a long time, I understood something clearly. Not every message needs a response. Not every relationship needs to be repaired, and not every ending needs to be softened. Some of them are just complete. Life doesn't always fall apart in loud, obvious ways. Sometimes it happens quietly through small choices, unspoken comparisons, and the stories we tell ourselves about what we're owed. If you've ever been put in a position where someone close to you crossed a line and expected you to carry the weight of it, you know how complicated that can feel. It's not just about right and wrong. It's about loyalty history and the fear of what happens when you finally say no. But there's a difference between holding on to someone and protecting yourself from them. Setting boundaries isn't revenge, it's clarity. It's choosing not to participate in something that harms you, even if it means disappointing people you once tried to protect. And forgiveness, if it comes, doesn't mean restoring access. It doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It just means you're no longer carrying the anger with you. If any part of this story felt familiar, I'd really like to hear your perspective. What would you have done in that situation? And if you want more stories like this one's that explore the complicated space between family trust and self-respect, consider subscribing. This is a fictional story created for entertainment, education, and reflection.